Welcome back to the Richland School District's Focus on Learning. During this segment, I have 3 exemplary teachers here to talk about our instructional practices in the Richland School District, how they apply that in their classroom, and how as district leaders we're working to sustain our instructional framework in the district. So starting to my left, I have April Knight from Badger Mountain Elementary School and Doug Lane from Enterprise Middle School. Sometimes it probably feels like an elementary, huh? And then Renae Yecha from Chief Joseph Middle School. So welcome today, and thank you for being here. We have, in the Richland School District, developed an instructional framework that guides all of the work that we do. And we worked on that in coordination with teacher leadership and the Burke organization out of Seattle. And to do that, we have developed what's called an instructional framework, and we call it, our acronym is STAR. So can you guys tell us what STAR stands for?
Well, there's 2 acronyms that it actually stands for. One of them is See, Talk, Apply, and Reflect. So we go on learning walks and we go into classrooms and we see what's going on. We come out of the classrooms and talk about what we saw, and then we apply it to our own classrooms and reflect on how we do that and how it's seen in the classrooms. That's one of the acronyms. Okay.
And then the other acronym, it actually comes from kind of the areas of instruction that we look at. So we look at the skills, we look at the thinking, we look at the application, we look at the relationship and the knowledge. And so we have tried to boil it down to what exactly we want to see students mostly, but also teachers doing in the classroom that makes powerful teaching and learning.
Great, thank you. And these 5 essential components, again, are known as STAR. So when we refer to STAR, our audience will know what we're talking about. Today we have the 3 teachers, again, that use the components in the classroom, and we have had an opportunity to visit all of your classrooms through STAR Learning Walks. I want to first, April, tell us a little bit about how your shared leadership, how you've worked with the district in a shared leadership capacity to sustain a strong instructional framework throughout the schools.
Sure, I've been involved the last few years with the Burke Foundation and the leadership here at Richland, and we've worked closely together to develop an instructional framework for the Richland School District that takes our ideas, and it is based on many years of research for what does powerful instruction look like that's going to get the best results for our students and our teachers. I'm part of our district leadership that trains facilitators in buildings. Each building has 2 or 3 facilitators. They come to a monthly meeting. They get trained on this instructional framework. They then take that back to their building and provide professional development and support to each of their staff members and how to implement powerful teaching and learning in their classrooms.
Thank you. Would you like to add anything to that?
Well, we're just some of the facilitators that she's training. So, our job is to spread that further and to bring in new teachers in our buildings, but also to generate ideas and enthusiasm for how to use the STAR protocol in our building and to work on basically getting the word out.
Yeah, and we've currently been focusing a lot on thinking because that's been one of our big focuses this year is thinking, and so we're looking at how can we improve that in the classroom. So we've been doing a lot of things at our monthly meetings as STAR facilitators and exploring that, and then also taking the teachers in our buildings on monthly learning walks where we're exploring thinking, seeing it in the classroom, seeing it in action, talking to our fellow educators that go on the walks. How can we apply that? We know what did we see within the thinking portion, and then how can we apply that, and how can we make the learning more relevant within our own classroom. So it's been really powerful, not only for myself as a facilitator, but I think for the buildings as a whole as well.
And we find that providing monthly meetings and distributing the leadership, we're able to sustain this professional development, while keeping our costs really to a minimum and allowing as many teachers to participate and grow as possible.
So we are focusing, Renae, as you said, on thinking, and and we want teachers to apply those thinking strategies to our students and then the students to respond accordingly. So Doug, at Enterprise, you're specifically focusing on thinking through visible thinking strategies. Can you talk to us about how you're doing that in the classroom?
Well, sure. There's a body of research and a book that's been produced by a group at Harvard called Project Zero. And essentially what they did is they took on the same sort of task. They said, okay, we can talk as teachers about the kind of skills that we want our students to have. What we'll call critical thinking, and we can kind of see what that's going to look like. It's got to have, there has to be some different perspectives that they're considering. There has to be some kind of use of evidence. There has to be reasoning with that evidence. There has to be some kind of collaborative work to dialogue, not always just to debate on ideas. And what these researchers tried to do is they said, all right, well, if we're going to make it visible, we need practices, we need routines, we need things that are going on all the time that allow students to show this and to engage all students. So what they developed that goes with this really well are some non-content specific routines, things that can be used in science, they can be used in social studies, math, any subject matter. And they are ways of engaging kids and extending their thinking. So they get to demonstrate that they're using multiple perspectives. They get to talk about evidence and weigh what makes evidence good or strong and weak, and these kind of thinking routines. And we've just started dipping our toes in it as a staff. We've got a few people involved, and they're excited about it. They are also something that I brought to the last meeting, and I don't know how that went over.
I think it went over really well.
Yeah, the staff, you know, everybody who sees this who's a teacher, they've got to get excited about it because it's a practical thing that we can do to make thinking visible.
Doug came and shared some thinking strategies at our last STAR facilitator meeting. Talk to us about, we use data to guide our work. Talk to us about why the district chose thinking and application this year. Where's the data behind that?
Sure. The Burke Foundation from Seattle came last spring and came into our classrooms throughout the building, K-12, and they made some observational notes and recorded data. And they looked at the 5 different components of STAR, skills, knowledge, thinking, application, relationships, and they found a couple of opportunities for growth across our district. And those happen to be in the areas of thinking and application. So our focus this year as a district is then to focus on how can we make thinking more visible and evident, what are some strategies we can use for that, and the same for application. And so our focus will be on training our facilitators in thinking and application and taking that out to our staff. And really gaining feedback from each other. The monthly meetings are not only a chance to train staff, but to get ideas and to network together. And that's just a really unique and powerful piece, I believe, for our district and our teachers.
We have talked a little bit about learning walks, and I remember last year, Doug, when we went on a learning walk in your classroom, and you made, which I remember, a great statement. You said, the learning walks are about me. And I thought that was really a powerful statement because when we go on learning walks, it's to improve our own instruction in the classroom. So you're known for that statement. That was great. Renae, you work with a high needs population, and you do an excellent job of using the framework to design your instruction and set goals for your students. Can you talk to us a little bit about applying this in your classroom?
Yeah, I found that a lot of the strategies that, even though there's some really high orders of thinking based in there, some of my students with disabilities can still reach those with some accommodations, and I still try and employ with using the framework when I'm lesson planning and developing IEP goals and things like that for my students. And so some of the things I've looked at is that application piece. You know, one of the pieces where we need a lot of growth is application. And so I was thinking, you know, where is this applicable to my students? Well, I found that I was developing IEP goals based on what they would need to do when they graduate from school at 21, but I hadn't made it apparent to my students what the reasoning behind why they were learning to write their names. So when I started to make those real world connections and make those applications known to the students. Their learning accelerated, and they were making more gains overnight than they had made in months, and it just was a huge stepping stone for my students to go with that. And I found that with a lot of the ways, with the indicators, the things on the checklist, it's still really attainable, even though my students can be so highly impacted with their intellectual disabilities in that form. So.
Thank you, Renae. And an IEP is an individualized educational program, and students with disabilities who qualify for services are on an IEP. Thank you. You also have really implemented technology in your classroom as part of one of your instructional tools. Can you talk to us about that and how that fits into the STAR protocol?
Yeah, my students with their IEPs, their individualized educational programs, have goals that we've designed to help them be the most successful they can be come tomorrow and come age 21 when they're done with school. And so one of the things that we look at is trying to work towards those goals and attain those goals. Typically, because of their disability, they have really short attention spans. So, we can only work on things for 10 minutes or so. So, due to a grant at my building level from the technology funds, I have 4 iPads in my classroom. And so one of the things I found is that I can download apps for the students or applications based on their IEP goals, and then I can work with them for 10 minutes, and I could say, okay, now remember we're working for iPad time, and so then they will work really hard, and once they get done working with me, I'm like, great, you've earned iPad time. So if they're working with me on one-to-one correspondence, which is counting items to represent a given number, I can say, oh, there's an app for that, and I can say, here's the app, and I can give it to the student, and then they can continue to work on it, but it's a highly desired item. It's also something that helps to continue to work on the goals, and it's not just a gaming device. So it's proven to be really helpful and successful in the classroom in giving them that extra opportunity with the technology to do that.
So really the application piece, applying their learning.
Yeah, it's huge for them.
That's excellent. We have been, this is our fourth year with the instructional frameworks, going on our 4th year. And our goal is to improve instruction in the Richland School District and in turn improve our student achievement. How do you feel being involved with the instructional framework at a leadership level and applying it in your building has improved your instruction on a daily basis?
I think it's great to be part of a leadership team. There's so many talented teachers here in Richland, and it's just a welcome opportunity to get to work with them. Working on it in my own classroom, you can just see the engagement of the students go up and using different strategies that are research proven, and the students are understanding the language. We're building a common language with this framework. So no matter what classroom we go into, if it's special ed or middle school or high school or kindergarten or even preschool, staff has that language in place to share and have an open dialogue and understand one another with strategies that we know are going to get our students to their highest potential possible.
And it also seems like one of the things that all teachers desire with their professional development is they want time to then absorb that with colleagues. They want to be able to sit down. They want to be able to, okay, how can we use this? And one of the things that's been nice about these last few years is all of these things are starting to dovetail. We have professional learning communities, which are meaningful groupings within our buildings. For instance, I work with other 6th grade math teachers, and I get time each week where we can do things like using the STAR protocol to design lessons. We can look deeply at the data of our kids. We can share lesson and assessment results where we can actually look at the results we've got, and I can look up and I can say, wow, you did much better at this. And we had the same curriculum material. What did you do? And there's a chance to actually do something different. I think that's part of why we're starting to see some success with our state scores, and I think that needle's moving.
And it makes the professional development relevant to every teacher. It's not just one thing for a math teacher. It's not just for language arts. It's not just for 1st grade. It's relevant for every teacher. And while we're going into classrooms, like I'm not walking in as a life skills teacher into other life skills classrooms, even though that's something that you may do on a learning walk, but you're going into your math classes, you're going into your, other teachers within your building, and you're seeing these really powerful teaching and learning take place, and you think, wow, they did this, how can I take it and how can I make it applicable to my classroom? How can I run with it? How can my students benefit? And it's been really powerful for not only myself as a life skills teacher, but also I've seen other teachers who say after learning walks, great, that was a really cool thing I saw in music. I teach Spanish, but in that, the contents are very different, but yet the strategies that they're employing are huge for my own learning.
That's a huge point. You said music. When we started doing learning walks, I really envisioned at the very start of this that I was going to be looking at other math teachers. And I also teach language arts. I thought maybe I'd be looking at that. Some of the most powerful effects I've gotten personally was from visiting a chorus class and watching what goes on in there. For one thing, the kids' engagement, not so much just what the teacher was doing. And it was like I was looking at a different set of kids. And so it really gave me some fantastic ideas that were able to, springboard into my own classroom.
And I hate to cut off this powerful conversation about instruction because you're obviously very passionate about being instructors in the Richland School District. So thank you, Renae, and thank you, Doug, and thank you, April, for sharing today and your leadership in the district on our instructional framework. And thank you for joining us today on Richland's Focus on Learning.